I often think about the prophets of the Old Testament, and especially in trying to understand the point of the prophets, which for the most part we understand, and and I've noticed too that most people really don't understand the prophetic books, but nevertheless, the prophets were not just simply men who spoke about what would happen in the future. Sometimes the prophets would actually speak to the past. For example, Ezekiel in Ezekiel chapter 28, when Ezekiel gives us an understanding in a world before our own world, that is, the kingdom of Satan himself. But anyway, so many times the prophets would not be easily understood because people think that they would be talking about future things always, and this was the primary job of the prophet. But that's not true. Yes, of course, they did prophesy and speak of the future. I guess maybe I'll make a couple of comments about that too. They spoke about the future, but primarily the job of the prophet was to call Israel back into a covenant relationship with God under the law of Moses. That was the primary job. You see, okay, so it works like, okay, God calls Israel, he uses Moses to bring Israel out of bondage in Egypt and brings them to Mount Sinai. And there at Mount Sinai, God enters into a covenant relationship with the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And this covenant relationship, and we can kind of see this in ancient Sumerian agreements. That is, a king would speak unto a vassal, and the king would say, "You owe me your allegiance and your obedience, and these are also things that I would do for you." And so we see the basis of that covenant and blessings and cursings, and we see that in the Mosaic covenant as well. But anyway, so God covenanted with Israel at Mount Sinai. But of course, as we know, they couldn't even leave Mount Sinai without breaking the covenant of God. And thus we see throughout their history, up until their destruction, as is depicted in 2 Kings 17 for northern Israel, 2 Kings 25 for the south, that covenant relationship was ultimately broken because of their infidelity. Infidelity in the sense of idolatry. So the reason why God would send a prophet, I like to say energize sometimes, but God would awaken a man with the Spirit of God, send a prophet, is to call Israel back into covenant relation with God.